The internet is home to an immeasurable amount of creepy, shocking, and downright disturbing content. This new series will focus on some of the most noteworthy and memorable finds from the deep. Welcome to episode 1 of Into the Internet Abyss. Seoul, South Korea, a thriving metropolis rich in history. Over the past few decades, Seoul has been at the heart of the Korean wave, an ever-increasing popularity movement of Korean culture across the world. Thanks to popular entertainment genres such as music and movies, Korean influence is at an all-time high. In part due to this influence, Seoul has also become a popular tourist destination, with over 2 million visiting in 2022 alone. While great for the economy and the tourism industry, a mass influx of people into an already overcrowded city is not without significant risk and danger. And unfortunately, one of these dangers would manifest into one of the country's worst peacetime disasters in recorded history.
South Korea declaring a national period of mourning after a deadly crowd surge.
As South Korea mourns the death of more than 150 people who perished last Saturday night.
South Korea, where the death toll now tops 150 in the crush of people who were out celebrating
As public outrage grows, South Korea's interior minister has apologized over Tuesday's street crush that killed more than 150.
On October 29, 2022, in the popular nightlife district of Itaewon, a massive crowd of over 100,000 people poured into the streets to enjoy the Halloween festivities. However, what began as a night filled with fun and excitement would soon devolve into panic, chaos, and tragedy. Itaewon, located in the southeastern part of Seoul, has long been home to large crowds of younger partygoers. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many didn't have the chance to go out for quite some time, due to the strict lockdown measures and mask mandates that had been enforced throughout Korea. The Halloween festivities of 2022 would be the first time since the pandemic began that guests could attend events that did not require masks or social distancing. This, along with the influx of tourists, are two factors thought to have attributed to such a large turnout. When the festivities began in the afternoon, it was reported that less than 150 police officers were on duty, far less than necessary to oversee 100,000 people. It was thought that these officers were likely more concerned with crimes being committed rather than dealing with crowds. Itaewon is known for having extremely narrow streets and dead-end alleyways. There is also a train station nearby. When passengers disembark, it adds to an already congested area, even in the middle of the day. Taking the narrow streets, enormous crowds, train station passengers, and minimal police presence into account, what happened that night is, unfortunately, not all that surprising. At just after 10 p.m. local time, a narrow street near Itaewon Station would become so packed with people that no one was able to turn around, move, or in many cases, breathe. Many in attendance that night took video in the middle of the crush, and we can get an idea of just how many people there were. With no possible means of escape, the crowd began to panic. A sea of bodies began to compress into those at the end of the street, pinning them against walls, buildings, and each other. With no means of escape, the crowd continued to collapse on itself. Now panicked, many began to realize the gravity of the situation. People are starting to die. Powerless to do anything else, those that could reach safety did so as quickly as possible, ducking into nearby buildings or climbing on whatever they could. However, many were not so fortunate. Dozens of people at the end of the street were crushed, suffocating to death. Others fell down onto the ground, only to be trampled by the sea of bodies above. There were also a myriad of heart attacks and other life-threatening conditions reported. In total, 158 people lost their lives, and another 197 were injured as a result of the tragedy. The police and local authorities were heavily criticized for their lack of response when the crowd was first reported. The lack of police presence was one of the reasons that first responders were not able to reach the location of the crush in time. The police department also admitted that there was no crowd control plan in place due to there not being an official event organizer. A few days after the incident, the National Police raided Itaewon's police department as part of the investigation. It was revealed that over 10 emergency calls were placed hours before the crush without any intervention from local authorities. One of the police officers involved in the incident was being investigated for abuse of authority and destruction of evidence. He was accused of ordering the deletion of an internal intelligence report warning of the dangers of a potential crowd crush in Itaewon, long before the event occurred. On November 11th, he took his own life. A memorial has been built to honor the victims of the Itaewon Crush, which is the largest mass casualty event in South Korea in nearly 30 years.